And bringing things to a close here in the Coastal Division, it was one of the worst seasons for David Cutcliffe as a head coach. The Duke Blue Devils went 2-9 last year. Chase Bryce shows up with, all of the Grayson High School bona fides and all the Clemson national championship rings. And buddy, he was so nice. He was so friendly to the opponents. He would just give them the ball. He would give them the ball by dropping it. He would give them the ball by throwing it. But this Duke team turned the ball over a ton. And it's disappointing because when I look on the defensive side of the ball, there's a lot of players I like. I mean, Chris Rumpf is going to play in the NFL. Michael Carter II is a very good defensive back. Drew Jordan, another defensive lineman who I thought was really good. I just think that last year they had the kind of defense where if the offense was, capable and just could take care of the ball or run it a little bit better. They ran it really well against Syracuse from, as you mentioned in the Atlantic episode, once we figured out, we can just run the ball against this new 3-3-5. They don't know how to stop it. So I don't know. Defensively, I hope that they've got some answers there because those are some really good players that are going to be gone. We believe that Gunnar Holberg will be the new quarterback. Mateo Durant steps up as the feature back after the loss of Deion Jackson. And there is one defensive player who I want to mention just because he is still around and I think he's really good, and that is linebacker Shaka Hayward. Got some good bloodlines as the cousin of the Cam Hayward that plays for the Steelers, which I guess that would make him the nephew of Craig Hayward, who
Ironhead.
Yeah. Played for the Steelers way back in the late Craig Hayward. So where are we at with the Blue Devils and where are you at with Cut at this point?
I want to go back to what you mentioned with the turnovers because I want to give some real context to the listeners who might not be aware. Because like Chip was not exaggerating. He was not being superlative with the amount of turnovers that Duke had. Duke last season had 39 turnovers in 11 games. The next most turnovers by any one team in the entire country, also an ACC team, Georgia Tech with 25. So they had 14 more turnovers than the next closest team. They finished with a turnover margin of -19, which, not surprisingly, was also the worst in the country. So when you look at that, if you just look at turnover luck, because of those 39 turnovers, 20 of them were lost fumbles. That there has to be some regression for that, which you would think might be worth a win or two on its own. It was so bad. So yeah, I think that this is a Duke team that was not as bad as it looked in 2020, but I don't know how good it is either. Like when I try to figure out this division going into the season, it's like, is there any other team that you can look at and you could see Duke confidently finishing ahead of?
No.
In the division? No.
Tom,
that's it.
If you look at their expected turnover margin, this first of all, I call Duke a zoom out team. And by zoom out team, I mean, like you're looking at a chart that you've made and you have to hit zoom out because they're so far off the planet, right? And like you can't capture them in the screenshot that you're trying to share on Twitter. So like Duke last year, especially with that, was an absolute zoom out team for me. The problem was their actual turnover margin was 127th in the country. If you look at their expected turnover margin, which, kind of neutralizes their luck, they were so bad that they were still 127th in the nation. So give Duke random luck and they're still 127th in the country. Okay, look, if we take 2020 at face value, then I don't really know if there's a whole lot of reason to believe that Duke's going to get back to where they were under Cutcliffe. Because if you think this is a real season and not a COVID product, this was just unbelievably bad. The ACC very rarely has teams finish outside the top 100 in SP+. Duke was that. Here's their percentile performances, right? 17%, 4%, 7%, 11%, 91% at Syracuse, which was the worst team in the league, 11% at NC State, 100% Charlotte. And then they just absolutely quit on the rest of the year. 0, 1, 0, and 1 to finish. Like they could make big improvements and still go, 3-9, like 4-8. I don't know, man. They didn't block anybody. They didn't have any quarterback play. They didn't stop the run.
They had a lot of injuries on the offensive line as well. And like you're at Duke, you're not looking at serious depth. Like when you got to go to the backups, there's going to be a significant drop off without a doubt.
Yeah, no, they had you're exactly right, Chip. I mean, just looking at they didn't have quite as many guys play like 100+ snaps like Pitt did, but they definitely had a lot of dudes playing snaps.
And the results were just as terrible as Pitt's for the most part too.
Yeah.
Well, like it was so depressing in some of those press conferences because David Cutcliffe and all of the all of the football that he's watched, he's forgotten more football, blah 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 blah. But like all of his experience, and these reporters like, so do you guys practice not fumbling? Like it was so frustrating, I'm sure, to be in those shoes. He's like, yes, of course we practice not fumbling, the thing that we are doing worse than anybody else in the entire country. Like it was not a good year, without a doubt.
So, Chip, let me ask you this because you're there in the triangle or nearby. Duke was the first team to pull out of the basketball tournament, right?
Correct.
Like they were the one that didn't want to go forward with it. Is there any chance that they were also perhaps like the strictest team in terms of COVID protocol and that kind of stuff? And I don't know. I'm not.
No, without a doubt. And
How do you say this? Like
the whole university
was
the whole university campus was unbelievably strict, way stricter than any of its any of it, like stricter than NC State, stricter than North Carolina. The way that they handled their business was absolutely like as tightly guarded as any recommendations that you had at the university level from what I was able to see.
This was a pretty damn big drop off in terms of team quality from 19 to 20. How much do you ascribe that to maybe how they handle COVID protocols and maybe how that sort of de-emphasized the importance of the season in relation to the overall things happening in the country, whereas some schools it's like, hey, football's still first, guys, right? Like we're going to have COVID protocols, but we're not going to have COVID protocols.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. No,
that's why you watch this on YouTube. So you see Tom and I winking at each other.
YouTube.com/cover3. Also stream us on Spotify. No, without a doubt. And the problem is that there's just not even if they take a different approach, like say we still have, we might still be COVID testing in the fall. I don't think we will, but let's just say there's still some protocols. Duke will take them just as seriously. And the problem is, even if there's no protocols, I just don't see Duke, without having COVID on the brain, still being definitively better than anybody in the division. And that's tough.
Yeah. The offense has been really bad for 2 consecutive years. So that's kind of my question. I think defensively they can bounce back some.
Yep.
They need quarterback to step up.
Come on, Gunner. Let's go.